Lieutenant Adams, hailing Lieutenant Smith. Lieutenant Adams, hailing Lieutenant Smith. Are you there? Oh,
Lieutenant.
hello. Hello.
Yes.
Are you there?
Just a minute. Let me. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you're coming through just fine now. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Managing to survive. Made myself a little shelter here just to um, keep me protected from the harsh conditions here on Ceti Alpha 5. Hopefully it lasts me for the duration of my stay here. So
Yeah. About that. How secure is your survival shelter at the moment? Like,
well, apart from having to sort of chase off a few local tourists who are trying to steal my technology, it's not too bad. It keeps the rain out, keeps the. I mean, that rain's nasty, by the way. I mean, I don't know what the chuff's dissolved in it, but it's not pretty.
oh dear, right.
The sandstorms are a bit brutal. I mean, it's a bit windy today, but luckily
Uh-huh.
it's not. Funnily enough, though, it's actually pretty much like.
Well, that looks quite calm just now. That's not too bad. Yeah, and I think it's coming into a new season as you revolve around that binary star there. So I may not be too bad. It's just that I've just come out of a meeting here at Starfleet headquarters. We're going to have to extend your mission ever so slightly.
What exactly do you mean by extend?
Well,
Everything.
we've got a few issues here on Earth. There's a phage virus
What?
out. There's a phage virus outbreak here on Earth. Basically, we're having to quarantine. So we're not going to be able to bring you back as we planned, I'm afraid. Yeah, basically Earth is closed.
Ah,
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't have got too heavy on that Romulan ale then. I don't have any left. Damn it.
Right. Well, it's not too bad. We are going to be able to help you out. I mean, we can't really send you much because we can't have any shuttlecraft leaving Earth. There's a risk of contamination. We don't want to contaminate other worlds. We've literally had to close all our borders. However, I did speak to them, and we are going to look at increasing the bandwidth for the subspace transmissions. So we should hopefully be able to send you some entertainment. And I'm told by our engineers that your replicator could manage to produce one luxury item. It's still got enough power left in it for that. So think carefully, and you know, something that you could keep you going for a little while longer.
Okay. Yeah. Um, what about one of the many? I mean, we are part of the United Federation of Planets, and Earth isn't the only one. So, did I piss somebody off?
No.
Because I'm kind of getting felt like I'm being. Androids don't cry, but I'm leaking.
Oh no, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I know it sucks big time. Yeah, I was really looking forward. Hey, I've got leave coming up. I've been working back to back for 3 months now, and I had a 2 week vacation planned on Risa, and the whole thing's called off. So, you know,
That's nice.
well, we're all in the same boat. Mine's maybe a little bit bigger, more comfortable, memory foam bed and all that. But you're doing really well there. I mean, just think of all the extra exploration you can get done with your extended leave.
You know what? You can stick your exploration up your...
Affirmative.
I'm really sorry you feel that way, Lieutenant. Unfortunately, the president of the world has decided that the borders are closed. We can't have anything leaving. But as I say, we are going to be able to get you some entertainment out. So we'll be able to send you some Hollow movies. You know, we reckon we could send you quite a few hours. And as I say, your replicator is good for one more item. So, and you've got the food rations, you've got the Starfleet regulation food rations, so you'll be okay, honestly. And as I say, you're going into a new season there on Ceti Alpha 5. It might get a little bit better weather. Here's hoping.
Well, if it's anything, if it's anything like the early seasons of Star Trek, it's going to be shite. But anyway, thank you for that. Right, okay.
I'm doing my best here for you.
All right, I suppose, it is what it is. Let's just get down to brass tacks here and do what we need.
Okay. So what can we get for you? I mean, we can get, we've got, we reckon, I don't know, probably about 12 hours worth of any kind of Hollow entertainment for you. So what do you think we could send? And I'll get our best people on it right now. We'll go through the archives and get that to you as soon as we can.
Does Starfleet still have Debbie Does Dallas?
No, I think that one was deleted some while ago on the grounds of inequality.
Ah, okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. And just general bad taste.
I'm stuck on a damn planet. Bad taste is. Yeah. If you've ever tried to eat the rats on this planet, I think the rats. It's not. Yeah.
No. I'm really sorry, but hey, we've got restrictions here too, and our replicators are all restricted. We're only one luxury item a week here. It's pretty tough.
At least you get that luxury item. I only get one damn thing in the anyway. I'm gonna end up getting court-martialed if we don't get it. Right, okay. I'm ready. Let's so we shall I believe you got my communique. I've just sent it through on the pad there. Just so you've got a list of the. I don't know if that should be coming through to you on Subspace roundabout now.
Okay, I'll just check here. Okay, yeah, I've got these. You're probably going to need to remind me. I've got a list of names, but I'm not sure. I just want to double check that we've got the right ones here. So maybe just if you run through them for me and then give me a few pointers so that I can pass that on to the archives, and it might be a bit quicker for them to come back to me with that. Is that okay?
Yeah. So the first one I would like for you to send over is Voyager's non sequitur.
Non sequitur, right? I'll make a note of that one. Roughly, what's the plot of that then? Roughly.
So non sequitur is a episode which concentrates on Ensign Harry Kim. So he basically.
He's still an ensign, by the way.
Yeah. Poor bugger.
Mm.
Didn't he make captain once? Anyway, that's a different. So he basically wakes up one day and he's not on Voyager anymore. He is back in San Francisco next to his girlfriend. He is he's not an ensign on a starship. He is still an ensign, but he is an ensign in the engineering department of Starfleet, and he has designed a new ship, which the name of escapes me, but it's like a shuttlecraft, something along the lines of the Delta Flyer in sort of size and performance and such like. But from the immediate moment he wakes up, he doesn't have any confidence in the reality that presents itself. He is like, hang on a minute, what's going off? He's saying, he believes from the outset that he has been either abducted by aliens or somebody's, put him on a holodeck or something, and he fights it the whole time. He does go along with the reality in the sense of that he goes to these meetings, he goes to the cafes, he goes to Starfleet, and does the job that he's supposed to be doing. But it's not long before people start to notice. But he never gives up. He believes and he sticks to his guns about the fact that this isn't right. Eventually, he realizes that yes, it is somebody that's sort of giving him this alternative reality, and they say, "Look, you can stay in this reality. You can be this person." But he decides ultimately that no, this isn't right. My rightful place is on Voyager. So eventually he gets back, but it really does give you a insight into the character of Ensign Kim, and his plucky never give up. I'm going to figure this out. And it's something that where many of us have been in that situation before, where we have a belief or something doesn't feel right, or we know something is right, but everybody else around us says no, you're wrong, but you know inside that you are right. You don't want you either have two choices. You basically either give up and accept the fact that the truth will disappear and will be lost, or you fight for the truth and you prove your position, and that's what Harry Kim did. Maybe not to the other people in the reality he was placed into, but maybe definitely himself, because he started to doubt himself at one point. He did start to sort of question whether the reality he was in was the real reality and Voyager was the myth. So it's pretty good in that way. It's a very good you can sit and watch it. You don't take your eyes off it because it's a really good in-depth character-based episode of Voyager. So
Interesting one. So it's very much like the ancient philosopher here on Earth, Plato, who wondered whether or not we were actually all living in a cave just dreaming. Are we the dreamer or the dream?
I think I would definitely it's like I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting he actually gave up because he had what it sounds like a utopia kind of situation there, which he gave up to return to being stranded in the Delta Quadrant with his compatriots.
And that's it. And it just goes to show that Harry Kim had a very strong sense of family, a very strong sense of friendship and dedication to his position. And the crew of Voyager was his family. He had his friends on Voyager, namely Tom Paris. He had his devotion to service, to his job, to his captain, and he that never left him. And that's a good character trait for Harry Kim, was that it never left him. It stayed there, and he wouldn't leave it alone. I mean, like you say, he had the perfect opportunity to start a new life on Earth, to live without knowing whether the next nebula is going to kill them or whatever. He had that opportunity, but he knew where his dedication, where his he had to prove that if he just wouldn't let it go, he wouldn't get back. He knew he had to get the crew home, and there's another example of this in a future episode, which we'll talk about a bit later, which is one of my other choices. But it's a very similar thing. This doesn't happen just once with Harry Kim and Voyager. It does happen again. So
He's a very loyal crew member, isn't he? Sounds a really stalwart of the team there, just as yourself as well. With what we are prepared to do. I mean, we genuinely sorry that we just can't bring you back. But please don't underestimate how grateful we are with what you're doing out there. And your fireworks will go off when you return. Trust me. Okay, this one sounds slightly scary. Death wish. Is that a subliminal message? I mean, you're not thinking of something like that yourself, are you?
no. The reason for Death Wish is it basically puts. I I chose that one because it's a very moral heavy episode. So basically, Janeway's in the impossible position. Now, the impossible position is that she's approached by a member of the Q Continuum who has basically gotten sick of being omnipotent. I hope I said that right. I was struggling with that one. He's lived 1,000 lifetimes. He's bored. He's doing the same thing. There's nothing. He has no purpose in the continuum anymore. He wants to become mortal, basically, so he can die, so he can commit suicide and end his life. I best actually mention that Voyager found this Q locked in an asteroid. He'd basically been imprisoned by the continuum because he was a revolutionary, because of these ideas of leaving the Q continuum, and that to the Q was a very dangerous thought. They didn't want that sort of radicalism to spread throughout the continuum, so they basically imprisoned him, and that's how Voyager came across him. Voyager finds him. He discovers that these people are quite compassionate, that Janeway's quite compassionate, and proceeds to say, look, don't send me back there. I'm just going to end up in that little box again. And even if I was to be free in the continuum, there's nothing left to do. So Janeway's in the position where she's morally obligated to hear out, and she's like, okay, I have to, I'm obligated to thingy your application for asylum, but it puts me in a bit of a quandary, because do I advocate this so that you can die? Because then I'm basically sending you to the slaughter. I'm basically saying, look, I'm giving you a death sentence. I'm killing you by offering you asylum. But if I don't offer you asylum, you go back into eternal servitude and damnation, which is again putting you into a, if you are, I'll use the term loosely, inhumane situation. Where he doesn't, either way, he does not have a life. But one way he has a freedom of choice, the other he has not. Eventually, Janeway does grant him asylum, and basically says, look, at the end of the day, he wants to leave. I have no reason. I'm giving him the option to become part of the crew, to become a human, to live out a life. What he does with that decision is his. In a nutshell, that's basically what it is. But it's getting to that decision initially, which is the big sort of moral tug of war that Janeway has, and that makes it a very interesting episode. Again, like the first episode we mentioned, there is a cameo appearance from a TNG crew member in this particular episode. So in the first episode I mentioned, we had Geordi LaForge, and in this one, Will Riker makes an appearance.
Oh, Riker.
So
sorry.
Yeah, no.
Many happy memories there.
Because there is actually very few. There's a few cameos from TNG in Voyager. We've already mentioned Riker and LaForge. We also have Barclay, Deanna Troi.
And Troy.
She makes an appearance.
What do you think of the decision Janeway made? What would you have done in her shoes?
That's a tough one. I would definitely do the same as what Janeway did, in the long run, I think. But presented with, if it was exactly that same situation, I genuinely think I would have come out with the same conclusion. I would have definitely wrestled with it the same way Janeway wrestled with it. But yeah, I mean, if it was a different scenario, a different Q, different circumstances, then who knows? I think it was a very unique and situation, but I think I would definitely come out with the same conclusion.
It strikes me as it's a this kind of pro-life argument, really, isn't it? We're saying he's going to be trapped in this half-life. Really, he's just trapped in an existence he doesn't want. However, at the same time, is is it okay to just say I've had enough?
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's a decision of, it sort of highlights as well how, in the most part, we are not masters of our own fate.
Mm-hmm.
We have some influence over it, but ultimately you know, we we don't have full control. We could take full control, but the price to pay for that, like I say, this is an example of that. I think so. I think that was a pretty good choice for me, I think.
So the next one I've got on your list here is episode entitled "The Thaw." What's that one about?
Yeah, the four is one of my personal favourite ones, because it's an episode about fear,
Oh,
how we perceive fear, how we react to fear, and how we deal with it. Um, so the basic storyline is Voyager discovers these people that are in cryogenic sleep. They're in this machine. The ships, I can't remember the specific circumstances off the top of my head, but there is an issue where they need to basically beam these cryogenic units off the ship and stabilize them, because if not, these people are going to die. So as part of trying to get them out, they end up placing people into the cryogenics to talk, because they discover that there is a communication system. There is even though they are effectively preserved in cryogenic sleep, their brains are still active and stored in a central computer. That central computer was originally designed to create an environment where the brain can be kept active, basically preserving the brain as an active, so that when they do get brought back, they're just like me or you, straight out of the box. Brilliant. There's no recovery time. There's no treatment required or anything like that. So, but there's been a malfunction with this computer. So the computer's created this visual interpretation of fear, which is in this case a clown. But yeah, so this guy is basically having fun with the inhabitants of this central computer, this cryogenic machine, and members of the Voyager crew that have gone into to rescue these people, so to speak, end up getting trapped in their fear. When they try to extract
wow.
them from the machine, fear senses this. He's part of the computer. He is the computer. He senses this and then basically scares them to death. Unfortunately, one of the alien species that is in the cryogenic is made an example of this, and basically this clown scares them to death, which then puts extra fear into the likes of Harry Kim, who's in there. Eventually, Janeway offers herself as a hostage to this fear, and she goes in and she distracts him. She plays him at his own game. While she's doing this, good old B'Elanna Torres is quietly deleting characters from this clown's merry gang, and he doesn't notice until it's too late. So basically, Janeway combats fear with fear. What is fear afraid of? fear exists to be conquered, and that's what she does. And that's a very good episode, because it really does say to you, fear is something we have to deal with. Fear is something we have. It's part of our lives, but it will not. You can control it. It will not control you. You can beat it. So that's why I like that one. It's a pretty good episode for that.
A deep one, yeah. So what did you say is your biggest fear then?
The unknown. Not being in control. Sort of going into a situation and not being prepared for it. It's if I have all the facts, if I have all the information that I need, or I have a plan of action, then I'm fine. But unexpected events, turn of events, that's when you get the anxiety. That's when I get the fear. So the fear for me is the unknown. It's a broad spectrum, but it literally is the unknown. In respect of that, though, the same thing that scares me is the same thing that excites me. What's on, but when I go exploring for the unknown, when I go looking for the unknown, it's myself that's in control. It's when the unknown finds me, catches me off guard. That's when it becomes fear.
Kind of a fine line between excitement and fear, though. They're pretty much the same chemical reaction in the brain, really, aren't they?
Yeah, it's just your perception of it, and like I say, how you deal with it. Exactly. If I can see somebody is dealing with a situation, and I can see clearly and confidently that they are dealing with it, then I can sort of take a step back from it, and it doesn't, I don't have to be, in control of it all the time, as long as it is being done and being, not like the situation I'm in now, which is a bit scary because, I'll keep my opinions to myself on that one, because like I say, I want to be coming back to a ticker tape parade, not a court martial. So
let me assure you, Starfleet are doing everything within their power to combat this phage virus, and I have every assurance that they'll get this under control. But I can completely understand how you must feel somewhat anxious about it, because you are quite distant to the situation, and it's very difficult for us to get communication updates to you about it. But I can completely understand where you're coming from that. But please have faith in our leadership.
can you hear that, by the way? That there's, you don't want to mess with one of those vicious little fuckers they are.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds scary. Is that one of those eels? I've heard about these.
No, the eels don't. It's kind of, it's a six-legged creature.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm like I say, your tent's hopefully secure, but I can appreciate it. It's somewhat scary there. However, trust me, you don't want to be here, because this thing is just, it's decimating the population here. We're all confined to quarters just now. It's pretty grim, and we just can't let people come in.
Is that why you're in 10 forward? Just
Yeah, well, the literally just as I came out of the meeting, the shelter in place order came out, and this is just where I happen to be. So
cool.
it's kind of handy for me. So yeah, there's plenty of supplies in here, so that's a good thing. Although the only drawback I do have to say is it's a little bit green, but hey, I don't mind. Bottoms up.
You'll enjoy. So yeah.
So your next one is running from fear to future's end. We seem to be following a bit of a pattern here.
So we see for the first time, I believe, our first ever time ship in Captain Braxton, I think is the name of the gentleman. He's basically sent to the future to stop Voyager from destroying the timeline, but he fails. the ship, they follow. He goes back. Voyager follows them through all. So they follow him through with it, and they end up back in 20th century Earth. So Voyager manages to keep itself hidden from satellites and the communications, NORAD and stuff like that. And they beam down to the surface to try and find Braxton and the ship, because just as much as Braxton came out to stop Voyager from disrupting the timeline, Voyager was very adamant that it was going to stop him from disrupting the timeline. Basically in the 20th century. Now, what they discover is that even though they've arrived in the 90s, the time ship that Braxton was piloting actually crash landed back in the 60s. Was discovered by a hippie who basically took the technology and developed it and created a company making all sorts of things. So the idea is that mobile phones, computers, televisions, stuff like that, all came from this time ship that he developed these technologies, and that's how we ended up with all this technology we had in the 90s, for example. Tom makes contact with an astronomer who has discovered Voyager's ship. This hippie finds out about Voyager, and so forth and so forth. And to cut a long story short, basically, he plans on stealing the technology from Voyager again to make himself money. After he also wants to take the ship that he found in the 60s and go to the future and steal technology and bring it back to the past. That's his plan. Obviously, Voyager can't let that happen, so they do everything in their power to stop him. The usual to and fro in and stuff like that. It's a great episode because there's very little on the ship, and you get to see Janeway, Tuvok, Chakotay, Tom, and the Doctor and stuff like that, all running about in 20th century planet Earth, Los Angeles. If you've seen any interviews with the cast on that one, they particularly liked that episode because they basically did a lot of filming on Venice Beach and stuff like that. So it was very enjoyable for them, and it's very enjoyable to watch as well. It's very well played, very well done. It is a two-parter episode, but it needed to be a two-parter episode. You couldn't do that storyline in just one episode. So yeah, I particularly enjoyed that one because it's that. What happens if technology gets into the wrong hands? What happens if we do discover time travel, and will it change things? Is it even possible? The whole thing about causality loops and stuff like that, because it eventually turns out that it wasn't Voyager that set off it was this guy from the 20th century using the ship. Because launching of the ship that causes the causality loop, and boom, everything blows up, and no, the end is not. So it basically is a very interesting episode. I'm trying to describe it and give it justice, but I'm not that good at it, to be fair. But if you want to see what it's good like, just watch it. It's worth a watch. Yeah. So that's Futures End parts 1 and 2. Very good.
Interesting. Time travel is always a good one. So which obviously begs the question: if you could time travel, where do you think you'd want to go?
If I could time travel, where would I want to go? See, I'm a firm believer in destiny. In our paths are meant for us. Our what's meant to happen. A particular favourite Scottish turn of phrase that I like is "What's for you will not go past you." What's for you won't go past you, and I genuinely believe that. So, if I was to come into contact with time travel, I would go forward. I wouldn't go back, because everything that's happened up till now has put me into this position, good or bad. It's put me into this position. So to go back and potentially make a mistake and change that, So I would definitely go forward. How far forward? Who knows? Flip the dial and see where it ends up.
And technology-wise, I mean, it's hard to figure out what's going to be the next big thing, but what do you think you'd like to bring back from the future that we might develop?
Personally, myself in one piece.
So you wouldn't fancy laying your hands on a tricorder and bringing it back and claiming that £1 million prize then?
Well, see, that's the thing. Is I, as you know, as much as that would be tempting, it genuinely is for me a strong belief that any action that I do, even in the present, so if I go to the future and bring something back to enhance my present, that's just as bad as me going to my past and changing something there. It's the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. It's the same principle. Now, fair enough. All that it will do is create I'm a strong believer in parallel universes. So every time a decision is made, yes or no, good or bad, the universe splits in two. I know this is just a theory at this point, but I do believe in this theory. It splits in two. So you have the universe where you said yes, and you have the universe where you said no, and then it's an endless, there's always a universe in existence where the decision that you made and the opposite decision play out. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing in that be the end of everything. But the thing is which one of those realities do I get stuck in? Do I get stuck in the one where I didn't make the decision, or do I get stuck in the one where I did make the decision? Which one's to be good or which one's to be bad? But excuse me, the sand gets into you really. But yeah, it's fundamentally it's a case of nothing goes back, nothing goes forward, other than me. It's the butterfly effect. I believe you are familiar with that particular
Yep.
that particular theory. It's essentially that. I mean, even the risk, to be fair, even the risk of me just appearing in the future or appearing in the past could be enough of a catalyst to change everything. So, but yeah, if it was possible to safely do it, I would definitely go forward. Wouldn't bring anything back. It would probably bring me, if I went back to the future and I thought, oh yes, we are doing this and we are doing that. We've got this technology and everybody's getting along and stuff like that. I would bring back the knowledge that future generations from my time is going to be okay. That would be enough of a souvenir for me to go forward and say, are we going to be okay, or are we screwed? Because I'm stuck here. But
hopefully there's enough for you to come back to. Yeah, it would be kind of nice if somebody could go forward in time and find the vaccination for this phage, but we're just going to have to sit and wait. The next one on my list then, that seems to be there's almost a theme coming up here. This one's called The Killing Game. Is that something that you fancy trying with the eels?
Yeah. Although to be perfectly honest with you, I'm kind of liking my selection because yes, there is a theme, but it's not the theme that you are assuming right now. The pure and simply, The Killing Game for me is. I like the episode because it has an element of World War II history into it. It's pure and simply that storyline of they've been held captive by the Herosian, who are using them as sport, as game in a hunt. So they take over Voyager and they discover Voyager's holodecks, and they thought, oh, we can create these environments where they can play out the hunt, they can play out their game, if you like, in an environment that is both they find exciting and thrilling. So they use early 20th century, particularly World War II, set in France, where the Herosian, naturally being the aggressors in this particular story, play the German SS and German troops. and members of the Voyager crew. Some of them play the Resistance, the French Resistance, and some of them play American troops. So I may say Tom Paris fits into the role of a lieutenant in the US Army very, very well, as because he plays that role very well, and he's pretty much the same guy in that role as he is in real life as a starship ensign, starship lieutenant, pilot, etc. Now how do they go along with this? How are they playing along with this? Because to be honest with you, if it was me, I'd be like, on your bike, son. Mm-hmm. They've managed to develop a sort of an inhibitor or something that goes into their cerebral cortex, brain, whatever. I mean, technobabble. And basically, what that does is that tricks the crew of the Voyager into believing that they are genuinely part of this story. So they genuinely are French Resistance, that they are in the American Army, and it is World War II. So it's very, if you like World War II history movies and stuff like that, it's a very good episode because it really does play very, very well into the whole situation. And just for shits and giggles, Neelix is in a Klingon simulation and plays a Klingon rather badly, I might add. But but yeah, and at some point they discover that they can trick this implant, and they realise, oh, we're not in Kansas anymore. And at that point, that's when it gets funny with Neelix, because he realises that he's playing a Klingon and he has no idea what he's doing. And all of a sudden you have, it spills out into the corridors of the ship, spills into other, but at the same time that they trick people into becoming real, they also realise that, yes, this is a erosion simulation, which means that the safeties are off. And there are a couple of big explosions. And the ship, basically, that's when it comes to an end. But yeah, it's pure and simply because it's World War II, it's erosion, it's an abstract story within the main theme, which I like very much. That's what I like about Voyager as a whole, is that you've got the main story arc, but within that you also have these little bubble stories, not ship in the bottle stories, but
it's quite an interesting choice how the roles that they picked for them as well as part of the reenactment, as it were. As even though obviously Chakotay becomes a general in the American Army, but Janeway's still almost that kind of, although not in any military role, is she? She's the owner of a nightclub, but she still seems to be that pivotal character for the resistance, doesn't she?
Yeah, that sort of never give up plucky attitude, it's the matriarchal nature of Janeway's characters that again she plays extremely well in this episode. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. A similar episode where you see the crew out of context as Starfleet officers. Another example is Fairhaven, for example. There's another example where you get to see the characters, and I like those kind of episodes where they go to the holodeck and they pretend to be something else. They really are enjoyable.
I think we all enjoy doing that, don't we? I mean, me personally, I'm hoping I can get some time on the holodeck if they'll open that up at some point, just be even one person at a time, and I could maybe recreate my holiday that I had planned on Ricer, and that would be rather lovely. What would you do if you had a holodeck available? Where would you go?
To the pub.
Yeah. Any particular pub?
Just one with wet alcohol. I'm pretty sure when I was created, my creator based my sort of functionality and behaviour on a cartoon character from Earth's earlier 20th century. From if you look in the archives for a program called Futurama, there is a robot in
All right.
particular cartoon, as it was called. It was called Bender, and he functioned on alcohol.
Ah.
He was a smart ass. He drank. I think pretty much my creator basically did that. So, yeah, a pub, beer, alcohol.
Well, you could probably replicate some alcohol. I mean, there's enough left for one luxury item out of your replicator, so you could probably get that, but maybe have a think about that, you know? I mean, I've got plenty here in 10 forward. I'm doing all right. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, I'll definitely not have a problem. So do you think you're maybe getting too much blood in the alcohol stream there then?
Well, the thing is that my internal systems are particularly accurate. They allow me to eat, to drink, to experience flavors. I am essentially a synthetic human more than an android, which is rather annoying because it's not switch offable. So yeah, I do suffer from the effects of alcohol. I do suffer from the effects of if I eat something that's not particularly edible. I know it's not going to kill me, but it is certainly not an experience I would like to experience too often. But the alcohol is worth it, especially the Romulan ale. That is definitely worth the suffering.
That does give one quite a big headache, doesn't it?
It,
Interesting point you made there, though, about you're saying you're almost a synthetic human rather than an android. So what do you think is the point where artificial life becomes classed as human? I mean, where do we draw that line?
Sentience. It is simple as that. It's I think, therefore I am.
So you don't think that the state of being an emotional being differentiates in any way from artificial and human life then? It's the actual neuroplasticity.
Well, to be fair, there's the perfect example would be Vulcans. They choose not to. They have developed a way of life which means they do not they do not let have emotion. They function without emotion. It does exist, but they choose to disregard it. So, and they're sentient beings. They're biological sentient beings. So,
Repressed is what they are.
yeah, it's a different conversation. So, moving swiftly on.
Okay, your next one. Maybe a little bit how we're all feeling at the moment. This episode's called Timeless, and yeah, I'm feeling a little bit like the days are awfully long here, and appreciate for you as well. You're stuck, and we're both in our own isolation, really, aren't we?
That's the episode where they decide to basically transwarp back home. And Harry, Kim, and Chakotay go ahead. They basically create the slipstream to head home, and they, because of a small shuttlecraft can go through the slipstream pretty much no problem, but a large ship like Voyager starts to suffer. It's like riding a rapid. It can't make the adjustments fast enough, so the shuttlecraft goes ahead and it basically transmits adjustments back to Voyager so that they can basically ride the rapids. Unfortunately, Harry Kim makes a mistake with one of the calculations, and it throws Voyager out of the slipstream. Voyager then crash lands on an ice world. Harry Kim makes it back to Earth, and over the years he does not give up on going back for Voyager. He does not give up on going back in time again, you know. But he doesn't physically go back in time this one. What he does is he manages to communicate through time to
Wow.
so he manages to find a way, because as you know, the Borg have travelled back in time. First Contact is a perfect example. So they communicate through Seven of Nine to communicate the correct calculations. Unfortunately, the calculations don't get the Voyager home, but it stops it from. It just destabilizes the slipstream, so that Voyager survives. What that does then is that resets the timeline. The hurricane that made it home disappears, and everything resets back to normal. But again, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's very similar to the previous one where Harry Kim was home. He made it home. He made it back to Earth. He could have gone, you know what, I'm back, sod it. But he didn't. He knew he could change things. He knew he could. He knew he didn't give up. So just like the first episode that we mentioned, he didn't give up. He worked tirelessly to basically get back. And and this, Geordie LaForge tries to stop him at the end of it, and
He's still there. A little bit of interference.
A little bit of interference there. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the basics of the episode. It's a hopeful episode because you think that Voyager's going to make it home. But it's quite a solemn episode as well, because you realise that this could be the end. I mean, literally the end. But again, like I say, that plucky ensign Harry Kim saves the day.
He came out all right in the end there, didn't he?
Did,
and it's quite interesting though that he got home safely with Chakotay and yet couldn't live with that in some way. He had to spend the rest of his life trying to get back. Do you think that was a sense of loyalty, or was that his guilt that pursued him in that one?
This particular episode, a lot of it was guilt, because it was his calculation, that he was the one sending the calculations to Voyager.
Right.
So he was the one that sent the wrong code, the wrong calculation back, and as a result, Voyager crashed. So yeah, a lot of it was guilt. A lot of it was guilt, and that's in contrast to the other one. It was, and I think that's where you got to see, like, he was really frustrated with the fact, and I think that's what drove him more than anything else. I mean, in this example, he wasn't trying to prove the existence of a reality. He was basically trying to absolve his reality. He was trying to absolve himself of his sin, or die trying. So I think that's what, again, that's another example of the character of Harry Kim, which I particularly enjoyed very, very much.
It was good he got the opportunity to do that, though. Has there ever been a time where you sorely wish you could just reverse that, a mistake you made or a situation you were in? You wish I could just rewind, do that one again?
Or too many times to mention in this video. I think we're all guilty of that, to be fair. I think, yeah, we're definitely all guilty of that one. I think that one's an extended conversation that will not get talking for hours and hours and hours.
Fair enough. So they're all quite short ones. So we've still got quite a bit of broadband. I'm just getting a little update from our engineers here. So I noticed that you also have a feature length one, which is going to be good. You've picked a movie called Generations.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, Generations is, for me, one of the most entertaining, um, heart, heartwarming films. I mean, I do like a lot of them, but this one is my go-to film for. Um, it's it's sad and it's happy. It's, you know, I mean, unfortunately we lose Captain Kirk in this one, um, but in a good way. But the reason I like the two reasons I like it is the handing over of the baton, so to speak, officially handing over the reins of the franchise from the original series over to the next generation. You have the Captain Kirk gets drawn into a thing called the Nexus. Everybody thinks he's dead, but he's not. He's actually in this Nexus. It's the first time we see Guinan, or the first time that Guinan meets gets basically how Guinan gets onto the Enterprise. We find that out in this film. I think is it Elorian? I think is the race. I might be saying that wrong off the top of my head.
Begins with an E, but I can't remember.
Elorian or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's herself and a few dozen others, and they're rescued from these ships. But when they're rescued, they're pulled away from the Nexus, and a lot of people want to go to this Nexus because it's kind of like an afterlife. And one of these people that gets pulled away is obsessed with getting back, and subsequently spends his whole life after being rescued trying to get back. And he ends up on this planet. I can't remember the name of the planet off the top of my head, but it's an uninhabited planet, and he builds this. What he does is he teams up with the Klingons. He destroys stars to change the direction of the Nexus, so it will intersect this planet. Because for some reason you can't fly into it, but it can pass through you if you're on a planet. I think there's a little bit of maybe somebody's not quite thought this one through on that one, but
that's a bit of the you can't go to the mountain, but the mountain can come to you.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. Yeah. So anyway, in order to do this though, he destroys the Amagosa. That's the system, the Amagosa system. So he destroys the star, and the shockwave of that explosion from the star destroys an inhabited planet. In the attempt to stop him, the Enterprise engages with a Klingon warbird, captained by the Duras sisters.
Oh, they're a scary bunch.
Yes. In the ensuing melee, the saucer section splits from the main core and ends up crashing into the inhabited planet, or one of the planets. I'm not sure which one exactly. And on the way down, our illustrious Commander Data, in this film, he has his emotion chip activated or fused into his neural net, so he can't switch it off. So he gets very emotional. He gets throughout the film, there's different examples of him getting scared, excited, jovial. It's fun, entertaining to watch, but not as entertaining as watching Data at the controls going, oh shit. You see, you look on the view screen and you see the planet, the saucer sections going down onto the planet, and there's Data going, that is just, every time I watch that, it just makes me chuckle so much. Also, when they destroy the warbird as well in parts of the film, you can see Data. It's an interesting fact about that film as well. Is if you've watched it, which I believe you have, you will have done, obviously. The bit in the film where Data's looking for the life forms, so he's on the. I'd be delighted to look for the life forms, and he starts going, life forms, you know, I can't do it justice, so I'll not do the whole thing. When they were filming that particular bit, he was only meant to hum or whistle. But Brent Spiner, being Brent Spiner, he improvised. He ad-libbed. So when you see in the film him doing the whole life form thing, and you see Riker and all the other bridge crew looking bemused, bewildered, and you know the scene I'm on about. They look at it, they look at it, bewildered and shocked. That is a genuine reaction. That is not acting. That is Jonathan Frakes, for example. He's looking at Data. That is a genuine reaction. What that was is they were not expecting Brent to ad-lib that. That came as everybody else in that scene. But when they looked at it on the cutting floor, it was originally meant to be cut out and redone. But when they looked at that, that looks so genuine. They kept it in the film. So the reaction of the bridge crew to that little ditty by Commander Data was a genuine reaction by the actors, not the characters, and they kept it in. So that's an interesting little factoid for you there. But yeah, it's a passing of the baton film. It's got just enough comedy in it to be not to overwhelm or spoil the film. So there's just enough in there. Like I say, you get to see the Duras sisters, you get to see a Klingon warbird get blown up, and you get to see Captain Kirk and Captain Picard, hand in hand, saving the world, saving the universe. And I think it was a fitting way to say goodbye to Kirk and the original series, and to allow, just in the same way that when you watch episode 1 of TNG, McCoy is getting a tour of the ship and basically hands over. It's brilliant. I think that was a brilliant way. Brilliant film. Loved it.
Yeah, it was lovely. But I do have to ask you one question about that though. At the end, what would you have done with, let's face it, the hero saved pretty much the universe, Kirk's body?
Well, again, I'm a little bit consistent here. I probably would have done the same thing, because as far as history was concerned, as far as everybody else in the Federation and the universe as a whole was concerned, Captain Kirk died a long time ago. So to bury his body on the planet, to leave him on that planet, marked grave, of course, a basically marked position. I think that was the right thing to do, because to basically turn up after all these years and, oh, by the way, I found Captain Kirk, but he's dead. People have already, people have already mourned the hero. They've already mourned him. He's been basically, in the eyes of the Federation, he has been put to rest. So I think the universe, in a sort of higher plane sort of way, knows that he saved it, and that's all that that's all he needs, because he saved it countless times. There would be no need to sort of dig up old bones, to old wounds, so to speak, just to say, oh, by the way, look what he did. Yeah, nobody needs to know, because it happened. So, okay. Because once they reset the time, once they got rid, they got rid of him, and the Nexus passed by, it essentially reset the timeline. So when they went into the Nexus and it got Kirk out of the Nexus, so when Picard went in, got Kirk out, everything that happened didn't happen. So nobody would have known that the universe was in any way in any peril from this. So yeah, I would have done exactly the same thing. It would have been respectful for his memory to leave him and not say anything than to bring him back.
How tempting do you think it would have been if you'd have been in the Nexus to just stay there and hang out, have a good time?
Well, we look at the Picard, and when he initially goes into the Nexus, he doesn't realise it, but Picard being Picard, he knows something's not right. So he knows it isn't real. And the same with Kirk as well. Kirk's exactly the same. It isn't until he rides his horse and jumps a creek and he doesn't get the reaction that he always got when he did it on Earth. It's like, it's you know, I mean, I remember that bit, you know, it's like I've jumped that thing 1,000 times and it scared me every single time except that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Kirk knew it wasn't real. I mean, Picard already had a knowledge of the Nexus before he went in, so that probably influenced him. Would I want to stay there? Yeah, I mean, it would be very tempting to stay there. Yeah, I think I would. Definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And the last one on the list here is one called Nemesis.
Yeah, controversial. Yeah, I like Nemesis. As a whole film, yes, it was bad. It was, the storyline was a little lacking. It was a little bit. It felt a bit rushed to what, you know. You had a good storyline, a good setup. It probably could have been at least 2, possibly even 3 films worth of story if they'd have gone into more detail with it. But it just felt a little rushed. But that's not why I chose it. I chose it pure and simply because it has those moments with Commander Data that just, for me, he is one of my favourite characters out of TNG, and I do like his his reaction into it. Geordie LaForge is pretty damn good in this one as well. The there's a few jokes in there. There's a few, you know, there's a few, like I say again, subtle little comedy moments. But the start of the film, for example, for me, when Data sings Blue Skies, it was at that moment that I discovered that Brent Spiner could actually sing, and pretty well as well. I mean, you know, I've listened to a few of his songs, and he is a pretty good crooner. But yeah, that was a good moment. It's actually the first time as well that Will Wheaton has been in a Star Trek episode or film and has not said a damn word. Yeah, because he's only in the first 30, 40 seconds of the film, and he doesn't say anything. So for the first time ever, Captain Picard never had to say "Shut up, Wesley,"
which he only actually ever said once.
But he only said it once, but it became one of the most fundamental standing jokes in Star Trek fandom.
Yeah. And it's funny how that happens, because Kirk never said "beam me up" ever.
Yeah,
he never said "beam me up, Scotty." He never said those words, and yet it's there. It's almost like "play it again, Sam." That was never said in Casablanca.
Yeah, it's amazing how these things happen, and to be honest with you, that could be an interesting topic for a future video, maybe discussing the idioms of Star Trek and how they became, and how, you know, which ones are true and which ones are myth. But yeah,
said it once, and it became this whole meme stash, didn't it?
And just going back to the film, in retrospect, I mean, I didn't know it at the time because he was a pretty much an unknown actor at this particular moment in his career. But retrospectively, looking back at the film, I like it as well because it's the first time we see, or I seen. I'm not saying he didn't do anything else at the time, but it's the first one I remember him from, Tom Hardy.
That actually that made him, yes, that catapulted him into stardom. That was his big break.
I wonder what happened to him. Yeah, I mean, look at him now. He is he's the quintessential all-rounder, actor, and it's great to see British and colonial actors make it in. Patrick Stewart,
who started off as an unknown Shakespearean actor.
Exactly, yeah. Marina Sirtis as well. You know, another British
Mhm.
actor. Let's say Tom Hardy. It's you know I love to see that happen. You know, British talent getting out there, and like I say, Tom Hardy was he, he he had a good character, and I think it was badly written. I think that was an injustice for him, but he did it. He acted well enough in that film for me, and obviously for Hollywood, because since then he's been in other films. Um, but yeah, Commander Data, and I think it's like the film equivalent of Threshold. Yeah, there you go, Greg. I mentioned Threshold for you. I know he's going to be
I
cheesing.
love you for that.
Um,
Yeah.
it's like the Threshold of the movie world. You know, it's that bad. It's almost cult status. You know. Um,
It has some good moments in it, but talking of little known stars, though, the one that actually surprised me the most was Jim Robinson from Neighbours, was in
yeah,
the Romulan Senate,
yeah.
and now he's a huge Hollywood star.
Oh, it's amazing how that happens. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
oh, there was what was it that there was that there was that actress that worked in the Australian soaps. Kylie Minogue. You know, does anybody know what happened to her?
Well, but I think she's done all right for herself.
But yeah, but Nemesis is one of those, and it's a bittersweet film, I think, because
Mm-hmm.
um, it had the potential to sort of launch further, you know, keep going, but it, it was good enough to watch, but it was bad enough to kill TNG as a movie franchise, which I think
Yeah.
was a shame. To be fair, it really was.
For me, it was unfortunate because there were some really beautiful scenes in it between Data and Picard.
Yeah,
Um, some fantastic moments, but ultimately, just
and
no, the
that's what
story lacked.
that's why I look at those moments and take the film for those moments rather than the film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame that it gets lambarded as much as what it does, because there are some good moments in it. It's just you have to go through a lot of shite to get to them. But
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go and speak to the archive and get them to assemble that data package for you to get that out. In the meantime, I've had the engineers that have just been in at the site here, and they're telling me they checked the power levels on your replicator, and they did a little diagnostic just now. You're going to be able to print off a printed form of a book, and you're going to get a luxury item, but it can't be anything too big. So, and clearly you can't come back to Earth. So I'm sorry, it's gonna have to be something that will help you with your stay on Ceti Alpha 5. Don't be thinking you can replicate a shuttlecraft, because we will not let you in. In fact, I think they'll probably just shoot you on sight. So there you go.
I'll start with the luxury item. Uh,
Okay, what are you going to go for?
well, it's technically one item, but it will be cut and shaped. Enough enough copper
Mm-hmm.
to make a still.
Oh.
It's it,
Oh.
there's no such materials on this planet in order to make one. I mean, I've got my tricorders and a few other basic tools from the crash shuttlecraft. So I don't need any particular tools as such, but the raw material copper, definitely that would be my luxury item to build a still. Um,
You're going to make your own alcohol?
yes,
Excellent.
it does have other functions as well, because you can distill antiseptics, and sort of sterilizers as well, which could be quite handy, and stuff like that for medical. So it does have a further purpose. But yeah, as I say, there is a wonderful sort of very similar to a potato, I think. Nothing much grows over ground on this planet, but
Mm-hmm.
like a root vegetable, similar, like I say, similar to a potato. It has a very sweet taste to it, so I reckon it could make a nice little whiskey or something like that. So yeah, that
Oh,
would
good
be.
luck with that endeavour. That's a very practical item to pick. Actually, that'll serve you well. And
It's,
how long do you think you'll need to store? Because don't you usually put whiskey in a barrel for quite a while for it to mature? I mean,
an ancient earth process of moonshining, I believe it was
all
called,
right.
where you do, in order to get around certain. I mean, even though it was very much illegal, um, you could. It's basically where they drink the whiskey straight out. So if you make the whiskey in the still and they drink it from the still, they don't age it in any way, shape, or form. Um, and they I believe they made it out of corn as well. I think was the most popular ingredient.
Right.
They did make it out of other things as well. You can make whiskey out of virtually anything. But yeah, it's you don't have to, as long as you've got some form of container to store it in. Which, to be honest with you, I mean, there are sort of I could sort of jerry rig a few things from the shuttle to make storage containers and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a gift that keeps on giving. If you can, if you've got the raw materials, you make the still. There you go. It's again, and to be perfectly honest with you, at the rate of knots you lot are going, I don't think I'm going to be getting out of here anytime soon. So
Well, we can't really put any assessment on the time it'll take. I mean, we've got the best medical minds doing, which actually leads me just to a little warning for you. I do believe moonshine was illegal here on prehistoric Earth purely because it actually made people go blind. And just to warn you, we're
yeah,
going to have to take your medical hologram offline to come and work on with ours over here to get a vaccination for this phage. So you won't get any medical attention, I'm afraid. So just be careful out there.
there is a reason why people go blind. A little top tip for anybody that wants to make their own. The reason why people went blind is they would drink out of what was known as the foreshot, which is basically the first couple of usually a quart, but maybe 2 or 3 quarts. And it was the initial fermentation of the alcohol is so strong it will make you go blind. So that's the stuff they get thrown away. Um, it's only after the first quart or two that you start to drink it. Then also what you would do after that is you would make more by tempering what you've produced. So the percentage of alcohol in what you've got, you would literally water it down to get it down to, so you could have maybe 90% proof. You would water it down to about 70, 75, 80% proof. And you'd usually get a couple more. So I've done my homework.
Okay, that's good. I'm reassured that you'll be okay now. It was just to give you that warning. You've only got the emergency med kit, as I say, your emergency hologram. We're going to have to take that matrix offline and come and work with our experts here because we need to put every best brain we can get on this thing. Um, but yeah, but you still have a book as well. They're telling me there's enough in the paper stores of the replicator to print you something. Is there something you might want to read for, you've got a lot of time on your hands now?
Yeah, I think a good book. Um, there's a book called Peace is Every Step,
Mm-hmm.
um, by now I can never I'm not going to pronounce the author's name because I cannot pronounce the author's name, but it was written by a Buddhist monk from the 20th century,
Oh,
and it's it's definitely it's a good read because it basically just explains that world peace and that is down to each individual. It cannot, it's about you. It's not about what everybody else does. It's about what
mm-hmm.
you. Every moment, every step you take is influences your life and how you sort of you know. So it's very good, very good in that one. So that's what I would do. The peace is every step.
That sounds beautiful. What kind of things have you learned from that then?
Um, it's essentially like I say, it's about that it's inner peace that we, we have to find that in ourselves before we can change the world. And how we change the world, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, how we change the world is once we find that inner peace, once we find that ability to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly, and live with it and use that in a good way. Once everybody does that, I believe that after reading this book, when everybody does that, we can change the world. The world can change. Am I, do I conform to Buddhism? Do I conform to all this? No, but I believe that that the whole belief system is about the human condition. It's not about some high almighty power. It's about us as individuals, and I think that's the way forward. To be fair, so it's a difficult book to describe. Pure and simply because it's each individual reader will take what they want from it. It's universal, but it's also individual at the same time, which is pretty good. Definitely worth a read if you want to find your enlightenment, inner peace, and stuff like that. Especially if if you're into Vulcans and stuff like that. It's pretty much the same ethos. Peace and long life. Live long and prosper.
I may have to dig that one out of the archives myself. So I'm just being called though. My slot in the holodeck's nearly ready, and I really would like some downtime in Rice. This has been quite. I mean, I appreciate it. It's tough for you, but it's been pretty stressful here too. And with all I've got is this lovely green stuff. So I'm going to have to go now. But I've got the archivist working on getting this across to you, so it'll be coming through on a subspace transmission. And as I say, you're welcome to go to the replicator whenever you like and get your copper still set up. And hopefully I'll be able to be back in touch in a week or so and see how you're getting on.
I look forward to it. Like I say, don't be too long with it, will you?
Okay, well, we'll do our best, and don't we won't forget about you. We will remember to come and pick you up. So, but you look after yourself out there and wash your hands very frequently. That apparently helps a lot. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Smith
Stay safe.